People would ask, oh, what does your wife do? And I would say, oh, she stays at home with our kids. It's, oh, so she doesn't work. Oh, she works. Try it. I had a period of my job where I would travel about once a month, and not once while I was away did I have to even remotely think about whether my kids were being cared for at the utmost level. See, the thing about mental load is if you don't carry any of it, you don't even see it. You don't see the bone-tired exhaustion of being the one getting up with the kid in the middle of the night, months and months, sometimes years and years on end. It's almost impossible to comprehend just how hard it is to build up or maintain any kind of momentum when you're constantly dropping off children, going to pick them back up, when there are multiple spots to be at multiple times, and knowing that even in that small little interim, you're on duty if anything goes wrong. And oftentimes, it does. I actually thought I was a pretty active dad when our kids were little because I did make it a point to go to all their medical appointments if I could make them. But you know what's crazy is a well-child check happens once a year. Compare that to how many kids are getting dressed, how many lunches are getting made, how many after-school pickups there are. It helped with some of those things sometimes, but on the pie chart, let's just say it's going to be hard to find my color. Yes, I worked hard, but you want to know what? There's an opportunity cost to my partner. In those early days, she made most of my lunches. She did 100% of the cooking to make sure there were meals every day. She did the grocery shopping. She did most of the laundry. So all these household tasks were things that I would have had to do anyway. She's doing those things, which frees up my mental capacity to do my job. Just think about even having to pick up a kid at a certain point in time. If I had been a single dad, that would have been on me to go be the person who's right there at 5 o'clock, which means that not only could I not take advantage of overtime opportunity, I had a job that required overtime, which would have meant I wouldn't have been able to keep the job in the first place. My job was pretty tough in those days, and guess who was there to greet me, to make sure that I was okay, to show physical affection, to make sure my life wasn't super uncomfortable? That's mental load. I was successful in the work I was doing because of all the mental load my partner was holding for me. That's what a lot of guys don't see. You're not doing this on your own, especially once kids are in the picture. You can't just put them in a separate category. That is your responsibility. And the fact that she carries that, you should be immensely grateful because it's the hardest job in the world. There needs to be an attitude in a partnership, in a marriage, where I am going to pick up the things I can pick up because we are in this together. Let alone this whole other piece that oftentimes a lot of us guys don't see, which is even today, my partner right now is volunteering at one of our kids' schools. That is an enormously valuable thing to help prop up and keep our community connected, to make sure that other kids in our community are feeling seen. We don't pay people like my partner to go lift up and prop up the community. But you know who values that? I do. And so should we all. Because if we're not taking care of our kids and we're not taking care of our communities, all the rest of this stuff is just going to crumble. And you know what it is? We need some major policy overhauls. We need some major value checks. We are in danger.
I don't know who needs to hear this, but being a stay-at-home parent is by far the hardest job I have ever done. Hands down. There's nothing I've done that even comes close. I've worked in all kinds of industries since entering the workforce. I've done fitness. I've been in the movie industry. I've worked tech sales and software sales, high quota, high stakes. I currently work in the restaurant industry right now. Literally nothing. Not even the days of my most hardest physical labor or even the most stressful quota pressure days. Nothing has even come close to a day of being a stay-at-home parent. So if you are in that season of life, please do not hesitate for a minute to know that you are doing the hardest work that there is. I would not have even had the bandwidth to create content. And I don't even create difficult content or splashy content. I just point, shoot, a little edit, and I post. But I would not have had the bandwidth for even this while I was a stay-at-home parent when my kids were preschoolers. I would not have been able to do it. There's nothing that requires you to be both physically, mentally, and even spiritually on point at all times, like being with little children for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours on end without a break. Anytime I've needed a break in paid labor, I take the day off because I get a sick day. One of the reasons I have had easier times in the workforce is because if I'm ever really needing help, I have coworkers. I'm like, hey, this project has a deadline. Can you pitch in with this part? And they do. I've always been on teams of people that have all been worked really well together. So we get it done together. That never happens when you're a stay-at-home parent. You are 100% alone, 100% on all of the time. There's no one coming to help. There's no one taking over, even when you are deathly sick. And the crazy part about being a stay-at-home parent is at the end of a hard work week, say it was the hardest thing I can even imagine. There have been times I have been at work, in a restaurant, I'm a chef right now. I have cut my hand so bad I needed stitches. I've worked for another 90 minutes while bleeding, and it still was an easy day compared to being a stay-at-home parent. I've worked 16, 17-hour days shooting on a movie set in the below freezing cold. Doesn't even compare because at the end of those hard days, those hard weeks, I have money. I could decide how I use. At the end of a hard week of being a stay-at-home parent, I was so it was nothing. I could go do nothing with my time because I was so freaking broke. If you are a stay-at-home parent right now, I cannot tell you enough. It is the hardest thing I have ever done. And I also want you to know that if you're going to go back into the workforce, I know that there's like a lot of anxiety about that. I'm going to kick butt and take names. I am just telling you, I have entered different industries easily, flawlessly, and then thrived there. Because the skills you have, most people are doing things that are so much easier than what you're doing. So you have developed skills you do not even realize. I've even done days of hard labor in like landscaping. I happen to love hard labor. I really like physically moving my body. Not even close to how hard being a stay-at-home parent is. So if you're doing this today, just know you're doing the hardest thing.
So I had hoped to film a more inventive video, but this is just what it looks like when you're on duty as a parent. I have had the last 12 weeks off from my job as a social worker. I took some time away for my mental health and to focus on my family after a decade and a half of not prioritizing those things in the correct order. And I've learned some things in the past 12 weeks. One of those big things is I've really committed to being the on-duty primary caregiver for our kids. We have 4 kids, my partner and I. They range in age between elementary school to mid-high school. And forever, my wife, my partner, stayed home with them and did a great job taking care of them. But when I left to go to work of the day, my thoughts went there. I just gave everything I had to the job. And I would come home and take the comfort and the support received from my partner and use that to fuel further gains for the people I was working with and the families I was working on behalf of. And I wish I'd given more energy back to my own household. I wish I had the capacity to be a better listener. Now that I'm on this side of it, even in the small sample size, just being on duty nonstop, to be the person who snuggles the kids awake, to have like small moments to yourself you think you might have be interrupted because somebody else constantly has a need, to be responsible for the meal planning, all the transportation, getting every kid to their 3 respective schools and their events. It's incessant. And I, for the most part, am enjoying it, but I also chose this. And I think, and on top of that, the kids are older and far more independent. But I think one thing that probably needs to be stated is that for moms, whether they choose to be a mom or don't choose to be a mom, it's a stripping of identity in a way that doesn't happen for a man, doesn't happen for a dad, doesn't happen for a husband. And I think I wanted to express how sorry I am that I didn't get that before. My wife had wanted to go back to work, and I thought, she's smart, she's intelligent, she'll figure it out when she's ready. But the energy that's required to do something you haven't done before, or to get back into a career, or even building a resume, isn't the time you have when you're on duty as a primary caregiver. So for what it's worth, I wanted to apologize to my partner and to stay-at-home moms and all the moms. I wish we could have done better and seen you when you needed to be seen. And I'm sorry.